Someone is narrating your life right now. And the question is it you? Because most of us at some point handed the pen to someone else, a parent, a partner, a friend, society. And we've been living inside their words ever since, wondering why the life we're building doesn't feel entirely like ours. I was reminded of this recently when I asked a friend how she was doing, and not like the small talk version of that question. I really wanted to know how she was doing. Was in the midst of a lot of life changes. And instead of providing with the usual, like, I'm fine, I'm grateful, everything's great, she looked at me and said she felt like absolute shit. And what came out next wasn't just frustration about her business that she was building, it was deeper. It was a story someone had handed her a long time ago, and she had been living inside of it ever since without even realizing this wasn't really her story or her words or her beliefs. And that's what we're going to get into today. Welcome to Get Messy, the mindset space to help creatives build sustainable and successful careers without losing their sanity. I'm Maddie, a professional performer of over a decade. I'm currently in grad school to become a therapist, and I'm the friend who isn't afraid to dig deep, and I will never BS you about what it takes to actually stay in the game. Today, we are talking about who is actually narrating your life, who is actually writing your life story. Because here's the thing, someone is always holding the pen, writing the story. The question is whether is it you, or did you hand the pen to someone else a long time ago and you forgot to ask for it back? So back to my friend that I was just mentioning. She recently started a small creative company. She's a painter and an artist, and she's been doing a lot of work for free, like painting the windows on different restaurants and different hair studios and different stores around town. And she's really trying to move into doing work for free that's been all over the city and like looks beautiful, into actually getting some of these clients to pay her or getting paying clients. In which, if you've ever made that transition in business, you know it's a really exciting time because you feel like you finally have enough to show for your work and you have enough of a resume to garner payment for the work that you do. But it's also really terrifying because there could be a lot of rejection. And what if people don't think your work is worthy of being paid for? Just a lot of terrifying thoughts that can come up around this time as well. So she told me that things were really going well, but she kept kind of running into the same wall. A lot of the businesses she was pitching wanted someone to, like, yes, paint their window or paint a mural in their storefront or facility, but they also wanted someone who could take what they were working on in the store and make it into like a digital art graphics that they could use on like a menu or use on their website. And that was not in her skill set yet. She did not have any like graphic skill set, graphic design work, things like that. And a few weeks earlier, she had mentioned this could be a roadblock and that she was going to start looking into like an online course and getting some different equipment and like figuring out what she would have to do to make that transition so she could also provide that service. So when she brought it up again, I asked her how she was doing and we started diving into talking about her business. I asked her, like, hey, did you ever look into that course and buying that equipment? And she said, yeah, I did look into it. And like, I technically could do the course, but everyone who does digital art started when they were like 18 or 19 and I'm in my early 30s. There's just no way I can compete with them at this point because they've been doing it for so long and like, I'm just getting started. And I sat there for a second, kind of like processing what she was saying and taking it in, because I wasn't shocked by the roadblock. I was shocked by the story that she built around it. The story that said, it's too late for me to start this. The story that said, like, I missed my window to begin. The story that said, everyone else has been doing this for a lot longer than me. The story that said, someone else already decided this isn't for me. And my first thought was, who told you that? And more importantly, why did you believe them? That was the whole thing. Is what it kind of all gotten down to is that this was a thought that she'd heard from someone very important in her life, that they were like equally supporting them to like help them buy the equipment and help them like take the course, but was also equally like, everyone who I know who's a digital artist, which like I don't even know who those people are, like, oh, everyone that I know who's a digital artist started when they were like 18 or 19. So like she had heard this specific phrase and the specific truth, so to speak, from someone that she really cared about them and their opinion, and she believed it rather than questioning, is there any validity or truth to what this person was offering? And here's what I've come to understand about the stories that we tell ourselves when we're afraid to try. Denial is comfortable, not in a luxurious way, more like you're living in a padded cocoon. It's cushioned, it's familiar. You know what to expect in this like padded cocoon of denial, comfortable denial. But every now and then in this padded cocoon, it's like you roll over and you hit a nail. It's like, how is this nail in my padded cocoon? And it hurts. And then you hit the nail and like you kind of keep hitting the nail. It's like this pesky thought or belief or dream that is like begging you to pay attention to it. And you decide to like keep rolling back over to the cotton side of this cocoon and try to like get away from this nail that's like poking you and begging you for its attention. Hopefully you can use your imagination to create what the sensation of this story is trying to portray. But when we genuinely believe we can't do something because we're too old or it's too late or we're too far behind all the people that are already doing it, we don't really have to try that hard anymore. We get a free pass to sit in this complaint and sit in the comparison and the what ifs of the whole situation. And here's the dark truth about that is sometimes complaining is more comfortable than actually getting up and making the changes. It is more comfortable. Making the changes requires you to get off your butt and be really bad at something and be really uncomfortable and be really afraid, but do it anyway, where complaining, you know how it's going to make you feel. You know what to expect by just sitting there mulling over all of the reasons why you can't go after this thing in your mind and then complaining about it. And it doesn't feel like complaining costs a lot, but it's costing you a fortune. It's costing you the story that you could be living. And have you ever let someone else write your story because it felt safer to hand them the pen and let them write than you writing your own story? I want you to really sit with that question because most of us have. I have definitely handed the pen of my life story to my parents and my partners and my really good friends and like try to look to society for answers or the media or my bosses that I've worked for. Like I've tried to let their words become my own inner narrative because I didn't trust my own inner narrative. And so it felt easier to adopt theirs than trusting my own. And then I wonder why my life story didn't feel like my own, or you might wonder why the story doesn't feel like it's yours. And I've actually shared this story on the podcast before. It's a story my mom said to me that has stayed with me for a long time. And at the time I thought she was just being a jerk, but she was right. And I hate when she's right, but she usually is right. And I was watching the 2006 Turin Olympics and I was completely obsessed with Apollo Ono. And I announced to her that I wanted to be a speed skater. And my mom looked at me and said, "You're speed skating in your head. You don't actually want to speed skate." And I was so annoyed. But as I got older, I understood exactly what she meant. Speed skating in your head equates to like when you fall in love with the idea of something, the aesthetic of it, the identity of it. But when you get honest with yourself, it's like, do you actually want to do the work that's required to actually like be a speed skater and like be a competitive speed skater and like go after that dream? Do you love it enough to sacrifice for it? Do you want to like lace up your skates and get on that damn ice? Sometimes the answer is like, yes, I really do love this thing enough to sacrifice for it. Absolutely, yes. Like you go all in. But sometimes you're really just in love with like the fantasy. So I think for my friend, I was like, are you in love with the fantasy of like making money from your creative work? But are you not willing to accept that like with being someone who is a professional and makes money from their creative art, you will get rejected a lot. You will have a lot of people say no. Like, are you willing to make that sacrifice for this identity and this lifestyle that you want to live? And there's nothing wrong with recognizing that. There's nothing wrong with being like, maybe I'm more in love with like the fantasy of what I think this thing that I want actually is rather than the reality of it. And that awareness around that is so valuable. The key is knowing the difference so you can stop holding yourself back from the things you actually want to do with the excuse that you're just not sure. Sometimes you are sure. You're just scared. And that key is like, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to sacrifice for this? Or do I not? Am I really just in love with the fantasy? The key is knowing the difference. And once you know how you feel about the thing that you want to do, you can stop holding yourself back from the things you actually want to do with the excuse that like you're ambivalent or you're not sure. Because sometimes you are really, really sure that you do want to do it. It is a yes, but you are just scared, really scared. When I asked my friend what she was afraid of underneath all of like the I'm too old and I can't compete, the answer was simple. It was failing, which hello, like I think so many of us can relate to the fear of failure. And I get it because like I'm sometimes afraid of failing too. I think we all are, or we have been at some point in our life. But here's what I want you to hear. By not trying, you are failing before you even give yourself the chance to fail. And typically our failures give us the most valuable information about our lives. They show us what the next step is. They build the self-trust and the resilience that success actually requires. I've even heard like fail your way into success, because that means like if you're having failure after failure, it means like you are trying again and again and learning more and growing more and figuring out more and becoming more competent. So you're failing your way into success. But success is never even on the table if fear stops you from ever trying. Do not let fear be your narrator. Do not give fear the pen. Fear is a terrible writer. It's repetitive, it's small, and it always ends up the same way with you exactly where you started. Okay, so now I want you to think about your favorite TV show. Let's make it a theatrical show. So not like a reality TV show. Let's make it a narrative show. The story is told through the lens of the lead character. The side character says things, they do things that affect the lead, affects their feelings, affects their behavior, and then the side character leaves the scene. But we stay with the lead. We watch them sit with what just happened. We watch them decide how they're going to respond to all the things that the side character just like threw up at them. We watch them choose how their story continues. That's obviously you. You are the lead of your own life story. Everyone else, your parents, your friends, your critics, the people who told you it's too late, the people who made you feel like you missed your window, they are side characters. They get a scene, maybe a few scenes, but they don't get to decide how your story goes. They don't get to decide the next action that you take. Whenever you hear an opinion about your life, about what you should do, who you should be, or what's possible for you, pause. And this takes a lot of like nervous system regulation that myself and a lot of people have gone to like a lot of therapy to try to achieve, is kind of how can you have nervous system regulation. So before you respond and react, you are able to pause and decide how you're going to respond and react, to ask yourself, how do you actually feel about what was just said to you? What do you actually think about what was just said to you? Don't just absorb it as the truth. You're the lead. You get to decide what makes it into your story. So back to my friend, as we kept talking that night, I kept thinking, how different would her story look if she stopped trusting someone else's words and started trusting her own? Or if she even just took the time to question their words and not just adopt them as her own. How different would it look if she picked up her own pen? And I want to ask you the same thing, not in a pressure way, more in an invitation way, because wherever you are in your story right now, whatever chapter you're in, however messy or uncertain or behind you feel, or maybe you feel fucking great. I hope you do. That's not always the case for all of the seasons. However messy, you are still the one holding the pen. You get to decide what happens next. You get to decide how this continues. No one else gets that job. It's your job. So take the pen back. And if you are holding the pen, but you're afraid to write the next sentence, like write with some big, bold strokes. Or you know what? Fuck it. If you're also like writing away right now, make the strokes bigger. Write with like more veracity. Use vivid colors. Don't let fear make you small, and don't let denial make you stuck in being safe. This is your story. Tell it like you mean it. So cheesy, but it is so freaking true. And if this episode resonated with you, I would love to hear what it stirred up for you. Send me a DM, leave a review, share it with a friend who needs to hear it. I feel like need this reminder. I need it less and less the more conscious I've become of it. But there have just been so many times in my life where I've given someone else the pen because I was just so afraid to trust my own words and put them on the page. And I felt like if I made a decision, it was like I was stuck in that decision. I couldn't like cross it out and start over, or flip the damn page, or like get a pencil and use an eraser instead of like writing with Sharpie. So you probably have a friend who needs to hear this. Please share it with the person who you think would benefit from hearing this. And don't be afraid to save this episode for next time someone tries to pick up your pen or snatch that pen out of your hand. Or if someone is sharing a message about you and your life that you know is just not the truth, but you need that little boost of extra courage to keep the pen in your hand rather than give it up to them. I believe in you today and always. And I'll see you next week. You're the real hero if you've made it this far. Thanks so much for hanging out today, and check out the show notes for any resources or cool info mentioned in today's episode, or places to follow along if you want to hang out some more. I'm rooting for you today and always. Stay messy.